How do? Today we're going to be taking a look at ConstructBot Soundwave in his 48 pieces of don't have to take it apart to transform it robotiness. Yeah, I just thought I'd take you a look around the box first because it is actually a pretty nice package. All this stuff is embossed up here, you can see it's all glinting in the light. For some reason I've used a movie Decepticon symbol, I don't know why. Yeah, 48 pieces, well it would say pieces, but this is the European ones, there's virtually no text on this box at all. You've got a picture of some bits on the side, you've got another bit of art on there, you've got a purpley tray inside, and if I hadn't taken all the pieces out you would have been able to see a few bits in a little tray up here, but not really visible really because it's pretty dark purple plastic. But anyway, yeah, it's a pretty good package. You can hear the stuff rattling around the side, and those are the 48 pieces you get. Although I'm not actually sure that is showing all of them. I haven't been bothered to count what is on that picture. But yeah, it shows you a picture speaks 1,000 words, although of course some more text would have been quite nice. That robot Soundwave goes into vehicle Soundwave. Although in the middle of this cycle you've got all the pieces, which then makes you think you do have to take it apart. No you don't. What? Confusing. Anyway, let's crack it open. Inside the box you get this nice purpley plastic tray with a lovely big Decepticon symbol embossed on it. That is nice. It isn't really that sturdy, it's pretty relatively thin plastic, but it'll be good for just storing all the bits in. You also get some odd points for the online gamey thing. I hold it up close to the camera and focus on it properly and all that and let you have those, but I'd like to use them, and by the time this video's gone out I might have already done, so don't bother. Although I really can't find the bit on the website you're meant to use these for. I don't really know what it's about, but there you go, you get those. And a nice full colour, instruction book, page by page, put it together, and then it tells you how to transform it as well. And that's nice. So, let's get to putting all these pieces together. But one thing I do want to point out, when you've got all these pieces in this tray that goes up the top here, you've got to be careful getting these out of here because this is really, really tough stuff. It's a hell of a lot tougher than plastic that figure bits are normally put in for packaging, and it really did feel like I was going to break a few of the bits when I was pushing them out of this. That is needlessly thick plastic, and it's almost as thick as the case itself. What's going on? Before we get sort of assembling all this though, I just want to point out, basically the two sort of systems of interlocking stuff you've got going on here are these sort of bar C hinge joints you've got like that, and ball joints. And then on the end of the ball joints you've got they're sort of made to be sort of rubbery. If you've watched Evangelus's interview with the Hasbro guy about how they made ConstructBots, you'll find that it's not just something they put on afterwards, it's actually moulded straight into that piece of plastic, so it's meant to be rubbery on that end and it won't come off, even though you can see this bit is already sort of, is that flaking a bit? Or is it just an extra bit that is a bit too much? I can't tell, but yeah. All of this makes for some pretty tight joints, and I've got to mention that you've got to be pretty careful sort of putting it together and then taking it apart as well, because some of these connections are really tight and it takes a lot of force to get them apart, and with the way that the hinges are sort of barred at each end like that, you can't just wiggle them and then they'll pop off because you're moving them in a direction they're not meant to move. They just won't move that way. It just won't happen. So you've always got to pull them apart, and it can take a bit more force, and really I'd like it to, especially when this is a construction toy for kids to play with and you need the strength of a man to be able to actually put it together and take it apart again. But enough of that, let's get these parts into a robot. So there we have Soundwave all built up. That's robot mode as the instructions sort of tell you to do it. Of course there is a myriad of other forms you could go for, but I'm just going to sort of stick to showing you off, what it looks like you get when you look at the box, even though when you look at the box you see, well, these guns he's holding are gold, and those are actually the pieces on his shoulders up there that make these sort of odd antenna pieces. Yeah, they're not gold, they're blue, they go on his shoulders, so even the box art is contradicting, what you actually do with the instructions and all that. So straight away it's obvious that they just want you to do whatever the hell you like with it. But yes, here is the nominal robot mode for Soundwave. It looks pretty good, you know, he's tall, he's about sort of Voyager size. Oh, what the hell, let's do a size comparison. There he is next to Beast Hunter's Optimus Prime, you know, a sort of current figure, same sort of size, but definitely a completely different price point. And when you realise that I spent 11 quid on this and it is exactly the same size as that, which was 22, yeah, there's a good strong case for ConstructBots being a hell of a lot better value for money. So then, this bot mode, it's pretty poseable for a sort of, you know, put it together construction toy. I suppose you should sort of think it should be, because of the way everything's connected through ball joints and hinges. There should be a lot of range of movement, and there is. Some of the sort of hinge joints get a bit limited because there's like mild ratcheting sort of detent affair going on with these joints. So you've got it straight, or you've got it 45 degrees, or you've got it 90 degrees, and you can sort of get it somewhere in between if you're careful, but it usually won't stay there. And of course, knees only bend that far, elbows only bend that far. While it would have been nice to have sort of deeper bends to joints, you know, what do you really expect from something that you put together yourself? But yeah, there's ball joints at the hips, and all of these ball joint connections are pretty tight. They are really stiff because of the way that the odd sort of rubbery ends to the balls are, and the way they sort of move in socket. Yeah, they can come off. I probably did that a bit too hard, but I don't know if you'll be able to see. I don't think it's particularly easy to see, even if you're looking at it not through a camera. But on the end of this one, and I think on the end of most of these, just from moving the parts about and taking it apart and putting it back together a few times, it's like the rubbery stuff is sort of flaking. I really don't know if that is wear and tear or whether it is just, you know, a bit of like mould flashing or something, but it seems like these might not last as long as Hasbro think they will. And when I first put this guide together, it did just feel like all these ball joints, they're so stiff to move, it's like, that really doesn't feel good, it feels like you're stressing something. But it's not too bad, I haven't found any sort of real quality issues, anything going funny, so it's good. And, you know, at least of course you get some stable poses from those sort of tight joints, but then you get the clippy hinge joints sort of working against that, because they can just suddenly topple one way or the other because of the fact they're mildly ratcheted and don't really want to just stay in an in-between place. Anyway, that's enough of looking at Soundwave's feet. Let's take a look at all this nice detail we've got. The torso is obviously very Soundwave. It's even got the sort of buttons on his waist and the sort of tape deck chest affair. One thing I don't really get though is why you have the sort of symbol here offset. Why are there two holes? Why couldn't they just have one in the middle? I suppose maybe it's another sort of tape deck design reference, the two sort of spools on there. I'm not sure, but I would have preferred that to just sit right in the middle. But hey, you know, this bit is on a 5mm post, so you can just go and stick it anywhere else. You know, there are ways to put it on his shoulders, you can put it on his back, hide it away, whatever. Or just go and stick it on another figure that has a 5mm port that you think deserves Decepticon symbol. This head sculpt is 100% perfect Soundwave as well. I mean, just look at that. I've not seen such a good head sculpt for Soundwave on any figure. But then, I've got to say, I'm not really a big Soundwave fan and don't have many of him, but that is just the best Soundwave face ever. Just quintessential G1. Of course, he's got these cannons on his shoulders as well, which are sort of, you know, like the one that he would have that would be the battery on his shoulder. And you can just, you know, take the other one off, hold it in his hand. There's loads of stuff that you can do here. I'm going to leave them on though because for now they play a part in transformation. But they're nice, they're on hinges as well, so you can have them out of the way and move them around on their brackety arm bits. It's just really nice sort of playable touch. And then I guess, you know, all the other stuff on his arms you can do the sort of same with, because the wings have to fold up here. I suppose that is sort of a touch of kibble, but there's different things you can do with it. Move it around, have it out of the way. There's just an infinity of options going on here. The same with these sort of bits on his shoulders, you can nail them around, they can be guns or you can just put them somewhere else entirely. It's completely up to you, but for now I'm just going to show you how you're meant to do this. So overall, Soundwave's bot mode is, you know, it's good, it is. Of course there are going to be a few little holes and, you know, bits you can just see through all over the place, but, you know, when it's a sort of construction toy like this, that's just something you expect, and it does end up being very filled out. You've got a lot of bits just being covered up, the sort of armour bits on his shoulders and hips, they fill things out. There's a lot of stuff going on here to flesh out that initial skeleton. There isn't so much on his legs, of course, because it's just another panel that you put on the flat bit that makes his shins. And something that I don't really like is all this yellow showing through from his skeleton. Why is it yellow? I mean, I can understand if it was sort of gold, maybe that's what they were going for, because Soundwave is all, you know, rocking the royal blue and regal gold sort of colour scheme, but it is all just horrible bumblebee yellow, and it just sort of shines through underneath all of his armour. It looks a bit odd, but I guess with the blue and the silver it looks kind of cool. I just sort of wish it was a bit of a darker tone maybe. But yeah, turning him round, you know, even his back is filled out by this bit that will make the vehicle mode cockpit. They just seem to think about this a lot, and they've given you something that is, once you put it all together, a relatively good solid toy that, you know, can stand up to other Transformers as well. And then when you get this level of detailing overall, just add it into this and it makes just an excellent package. It's just such a good looking, cool robot, and I mean, I know the style for some of the others, it ends up looking a bit odd, but I think for Soundwave at least, this being the only one that I've been able to experience, it just works, and it just looks good, and it looks like a cool modern Transformers figure, and it just so happens that you can take it apart and make it exactly how you want it. And while I'm sort of catching it in the light, you can even see in the cannons and his shoulders, they've sculpted in that sort of slight Gatling gun affair. There's like a multiple sort of set of barrels inside there. That's just an extra nice touch that is just going a little bit above and beyond. So, as final robot mode thoughts before we move on to converting this construct bot, yeah, it's good, it's big, it's relatively solid, it can be a bit wibbly here and there, you know, a few times in this review. I would have cut out by now. I've held it like this and it will just do that. Some of the joints are not really that tight, especially these sort of C-joints around the place. I mean, on his knees, on his ankles, wrists and elbows, you've got them. And while they move quite nicely, it just can be a bit annoying because they will just wobble about sometimes. And that can be a factor of just standing him up. Because while his feet have got a measure of ankle tilt, that joint is really tight and it can only go so far because of course both of the feet are symmetrical. There won't be an extra cut in here to allow it to move any further. It can be a little bit difficult to just plonk him down and he'll stand there. You might have to fiddle with him a bit, and you sort of have to make sure that his knees are straight because it is pretty hard to get him to stand up in a more dynamic pose, simply because of the way the ball joints and the C joints all sort of interact and sometimes cancel out each other. One last thing to point out on this robot mode though. See this? See that there? Yeah. What does that look like? Well, it's going to be a 5mm post because everything on here is 5mm. And it's got a hole in it. Whew. What could that mean? Yeah, well, it means you can take a Minicon and, you know, go and stick it on this guy. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that you can just go and slap Minicons on a construction toy like this? There's one more reason this figure wins, and I can't really say for any of the other construct bots because I haven't seen them. I don't know. Maybe it is only Soundwave that has this, but, you know, that is something just so cool. I mean, it's obviously not even an intended touch, but why don't any of these other posts that poke out the place have holes in like that? And it fits Minicons perfectly. I just have to hope that that is an intended design feature, because if it isn't, that's one hell of a fluke. So we've gawked at this robot for long enough, let's turn it into a space jet or whatever it is. First of all, you want to yank open his chest, and yes, that's another feature, sort of appropriate for Soundwave. You can open his chest and there is a hollow space in there. Let's hope we get some sort of smaller figures that you might be able to make into a laser beak that can fit in there. That'd be cool. But anyway, yeah, open that up, put his head into the hole, and close it back up again. There you have the headless Soundwave. You want to take the cannons on his shoulders, yank them up and down so that they sort of sit towards his sides, and you can come around the back and take the cockpit piece, I'll call that all the way up, and put it there. This will then be the front of the vehicle. So it's cool that you get some sort of twisty turny stuff going on here. You can untap the waist, and you could sort of untap that and have that as a little bit of a waist swivel for the robot, but it's not really in the right place. So you untap that, spin it round, and then get to work on his legs, because you want to flip the feet so that they can sort of go together like that, and then you want to sort of come underneath and arc the legs up, not really moving the sort of waist joint. You need to sort of keep that in one place and then move the legs, because you've got to get that hole there to line up with this post somewhere around here. It's dark, I'm looking at the camera, looking in real life. There. So it actually all does clip together pretty nicely, and you do get the beginnings of a pretty solid vehicle mode. And now, as the feet are symmetrical, you'll see there's a couple of sort of posts on them, thus they'll be on the other side too. They tab into the underside of the cockpit and just make it even more sturdy, and that's just a nice little touch. Next you come around the back and take his hands, which I've seen a few people sort of arrange differently, but in the instructions I'm sure it just tells you to just have them like that and move them up, because there's a nice sort of cut joint here and they will fold up quite nicely, and then you can bring the wings round, down like that, round like that, and you've got an engine and stuff. Do the same for the other side, and then you can sort of come underneath, see that hole in what was his thigh, see this post that was strangely sticking out of the inside of his forearm. Well, that clips all together. So all that's left to do is straighten out these guns, and you've got Soundwave's vehicle mode, which is this, I've got to say, I think it's really cool, this sort of space jet thing. And it took me far too long to realise that this is sort of like Cybertron Soundwave's vehicle mode. I'm guessing that's where they got the idea for this from, because, I mean, every transformation scheme for these is going to be pretty much the same. The feet will always come together at the front, but that's what happens with Cybertron Soundwave. The feet sort of make the front of the jet, and you've got these big sweeping wings that go all the way back here on that too, and I just like to think that there's a little bit of homage work going on there. It isn't just some completely random new vehicle mode for Soundwave like they've been churning out for however many years now. But I think it works. It's a nice Cybertronian vehicle. I'm pretty sure that's what all of these are intended to be, even if the car mode ones have wheels or whatever. You can't really make this look like an Earth vehicle, and a lot of the details sort of betray it to be more Cybertronian. There are bits and pieces of vents and stuff, and of course with the fact it has to be made of mostly a robot folded up in a weird way, you can't really get it looking particularly like much of anything, but I think this works. It just looks cool, it looks imposing, it looks sleek and fast, it's got nice big engines, you know, you've got these bits of like intakes, and got more turbines on the back, and the turbines have detailing in there. There's like a fan bit at that end. If you turn it around, there's other detailing there. I'm not sure which end is meant to be the intake and which end is meant to be the outtake, but yeah, those are engines right there. The wings of course do have a lot of holes in, but when you've got a sort of a toy like this, you expect large pieces to have a lot of just gaps in, because that's just not the way these things work. Another touch is that you can take off the Decepticon symbol and bung it on that more central post above the cockpit. That looks a bit better. You know, symmetry for the win, all that. I just think that this is just cool. It is just effortlessly cool. Just look at it. It's a big blue jet with shiny silver wings, covered in guns and engines, and it's weird because it feels like this does a good alien jet mode better than almost every alien jet mode proper transform we've ever had. And of course, even in this mode you can just go to town taking bits off and putting things other places, like say if you didn't like these guns here, you could go and stick them on the wings. Or if you didn't like these little wings down here, you can go and stick them somewhere else maybe, I don't know. Give the wings some tail fins maybe. There's so much stuff that you can do to make this look exactly how you like it to. So there's Soundwave's vehicle mode. It's nice, it's solid, it just looks cool. I've said that so many times now, but it really does. I mean, the camera might not be doing it quite so much justice, but it does just look cool. I love the shape of it. And the only flaw really that I can see that this has is that it hasn't got any landing gear. I mean, when that's the only flaw you can pick out on a sort of aerial mode like this, it's done pretty well. There's no undercarriage to it. The only real bit of sort of robot kid was maybe, you know, his fists poking out back there, but they're covered up by these bits. It's just good. I just really like it, and you can go to town and make it look even better. Just swapping the wings around or anything like that. There's a lot you can do, and it's good that it already looks this good. I think the design team, you know, did something right here, and I'm looking forward to see what the rest of the construct bot vehicle modes can end up like, because some of them do look a bit odd, especially sort of, I suppose, the ones with less parts, maybe the scout vehicles. They can look a bit, well, just like a robot folded up in a weird way with some windows stuck on the top. But this works, and I just love it. And one more sort of thing to point out with the whole Nikon port thing there, and that's in a rather prominent place in vehicle mode, wouldn't you say? It's poking up there, you know, it's on top of the engine, a big solid part there. I just have to think that this was a design intention, because once you put that there, doesn't that just look right? That just looks like the place a Minicon should go, and yes, I really hope the rest of these have this, because it's just that little extra bit of fun that just makes you sort of that much more excited and happy at how good this thing did turn out. Because when it's already entirely 5mm compatible, and I've yet to see exactly, you know, whether the C clips are actually 3mm C clips. I'm pretty sure they're not. They do look a bit too big, but I haven't tried for sure. When this thing is potentially made out of the interchangeable and direction weapony system stuff of every other Transformers line before it, it's so good because you can then just take the pieces off it and put them on a normal Transformer, or take normal Transformers pieces and put them on this. And the level of interaction and just play between all of those elements and parts becomes truly infinite, and you're just presented with something that you could just really go mental with, and that thought is just mind-blowing, because there is a hell of a lot of potential just in one of these sets of figures, let alone buying all of them and then mixing and matching all of those parts as well. Just, man, it's crazy. So there you have it. You've just had 48 pieces of Soundwave awesomeness, and I can't recommend this enough. As a new sort of system for Transformers toys, it is excellent. It has hit the ground running, and I really can't see many ways as to how they could have made this better. Maybe I will once I've had a few more and sort of got a bit bored of the transformation scheme, but right now, this being my first one, I'm just blown away with it, and that's really sort of something to say, to be honest, because when Creo came round, that was pretty exciting. Lego Transformers, you know, that was cool, and it was a shame because it just wasn't executed very well. The idea was there, the concept seemed strong, but it just didn't pan out, and they just looked a bit rubbish, and the whole fact that you had to take them apart, put them back together, transform, all that, put a lot of people off. It put me off. I've only got one Creo set, and the micro chambers are sort of the best thing from Creo. And there have been other times, I suppose, even all the way back to Built to Rule, when you end up getting a Transformers toy that isn't like every other Transformers toy, that tries to do something different. It can just sort of feel like, this doesn't really fit with the rest of my collection. What am I going to do with it? It hasn't got a home. But this, seriously, it just feels like it fits. It feels like a normal Transformers figure. It just happens to be that you can take it apart and make it just how you want it and make it even better. You've got a sort of style gap between this and regular figures, yes, but it isn't as drastic as Creo or Built to Rule, and it's not like bot shots where it's something completely different and you need to really take it as an other line of toys. This can stand on your shelf with other, well, I suppose I'd have to say relatively new Transformers, because of course it's a big lump of plastic, like most new Transformers these days. But it really does look good, and I can't wait, I really can't wait to get my house another one and see what I can make, and just see what I can do with this and the rest, and even extending that to other normal Transformers. Just seeing what I can do with the pieces, because when this is all 5mm, it's, I've said it before, but it blows me away to think of what you could do with this. And that's where the real clincher of this whole deal comes into play, is the fact that you buy this and you can have fun with it in so many different ways. It ends up being such good value for money, especially if you've got it reduced like I did. So seriously, just stop listening to me waffle about all this. Go and hunt down a Construct bot. It doesn't have to be Soundwave. There are cheaper ones than Soundwave. There are also more expensive ones than Soundwave, like Blitzwing. But just go get one and just see for yourself what I'm talking about. And it's really down to you, because I know there are a lot of people who don't really like the Construct bot style and all of that. And I didn't really. But now I've got one, I'm seriously ready to just go and pick up as many more as I can. And it's got to be something that you've experienced firsthand. You've got to get one of these, get it in your hand, have the satisfaction of putting it together, and just go, yeah. So there you go, ConstructBot Soundwave. Incredibly highly recommended, and I'm going to stop talking now so I can give you some time to go hunt one down for yourself. Toodaloo.